Tri-Waco, the Greater Waco Chamber of Commerce's annual Olympic and Sprint Distance Triathlon will begin at 6:30 a.m. on Sunday, July 9th at Indian Spring Park. Over 900 participants are expected for this event. The race starts with a point-to-point open water swim in the Brazos River, followed by a flat and fast bike ride on the spectator-friendly roads near the river, and finishes with a run along the Brazos River through Cameron Park, finishing on the famous suspension bridge. Tri-Waco will again include relay options as well as the aqua bike races. Online registration is open through Friday, July 7th, 2023 at triwaco.org. The Tri-Waco Triathlon is presented by Bicycle World. Again, online registration is open through Friday, July 7th, 2023 at triwaco.org.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to another Visit to the Mound. I'm Lark Smith, along with
Stan Huff.
And today our guest is Mike Mosa. He is a player's agent, and he's here to enlighten us about that role in the game of baseball. Mike has been an agent since 2006. He was a former member of the police union for 10 years in Beverly Hills, California, negotiating contracts for the police. Entered the agent business as a union rep that covered all aspects of working environment and labor relations. Getting into the sports end, he helped an agent friend of an NFL player get a reduced fine for an over-the-counter supplement. His strength was in negotiating a reduced suspension for the player that led Mike into baseball as an agent. He has helped many major and minor league players through their careers on the field. Mike, thanks for being with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
First off, I'd like to know what is required to become a player's agent?
Well, it has changed over the years. When I first started, it was you pretty much had to go to work for somebody that was an agent or have an agent sponsor you, and the Players Association would keep tabs of, what you were doing and how you were doing it. In other words, are you following by the rules? They now have a program where they give potential agents or individuals that want to become agents the information they need to pass an exam that they have to take to get certified by the Players Association.
Okay, so
is there a fee there for that, to do that?
Is there anything in baseball that does not have fees?
Okay. Well, how much is the fee?
The application this year went up to $2,500 from $1,500.
Okay.
Sounds minimal. Now you said rules and negotiations. That doesn't sound like it's belongs in negotiating to me. I would think, okay, what kind of rules are you talking about?
Well, I think rules in negotiating are probably the smallest portion of what they're after, because I think every individual is different in how they negotiate with a ball club. I know I had a club tell me one year that there's no way in arbitration you can get that figure, and I said to the assistant GM, that's not for you to decide or me to decide. That's up to the arbitrator. So. But they do have rules as far as ethics,
Sure.
Not giving gifts to players, not trying to take players from, another agent. I mean, just a lot of common sense things that, you would think an organization would have to make sure that, the individuals that are representing the union are, in fact, doing it, in a professional manner.
Now, your background was in unions, but what kind of background might an agent need? Something in finance, something in law? I mean, what exactly a background is necessary to become a player's agent?
There really is no criteria for it. A lot of guys get into it just because, they like the sports. They like, they want to be able to represent, individuals in the world of sports. And what they do is, they can go to an agent if they know one, or apply to work for an agent and start to pick up the information they need, and also see whether or not it's something that would, work out for them as far as, putting food on the table.
I see. Mike, let's go into the what you've been doing. It said, so how many players are you comfortable with at one time, at one given time that you're helping out?
In affiliated baseball, 15 is about the max for me, because if you get one or two of them that have, some kind of issue that you have to deal with the ball club, it gets to be awfully time consuming.
I see.
And, if you're the player and something's going sideways, or you need equipment, or, they said something to you that was upside down, or they wanted to send you someplace, or you couldn't see a doctor, whatever need a ball player has, you can't really put that on hold for 2, 3, 4 days. You got to deal with it when it comes up.
Makes sense.
So basically what I'm hearing is if a player has a problem with a ball club, be it, he's not getting enough socks or something, he goes to you and say, hey, get me this, or talk to folks about this. He doesn't necessarily go to the general manager, or, how does that process work?
Well, equipment is part of, my responsibility on the minor league side, and you're probably well aware that the minor league salary finally went up to a living wage this year. But, when you're making $300 a week at A-ball, 3 years ago, what exactly can you afford?
Not a whole lot.
Well,
exactly. So,
feed yourself. That's about it.
Yeah. Sometimes you come up short on the feeding yourself.
Right.
So, equipment like, position players are, gloves, spikes, turfs, things like that. Bats when they get a little further up the food chain. It's not too bad. In that arena, the ones that probably are most expensive, and most agents would agree, are catchers. Catcher's gear now is you provide a set of catcher's gear, it's, $1,000. And they raised, the maximum amount I could spend on a player was $2,000, and they just raised it this year to $3,000.
I see.
So you had to be careful on what you provided the player, because you knew that you had a cap of $2,000, and you wanted to make sure that you could get him the stuff he needed, not cut him short, and stay within that $2,000 limit that the Players Association enforces.
Do you do anything about getting endorsements for players, or do they do that on their own?
No, it's as the player moves up the food chain in the minor league system, businesses like, people that manufacture gloves and bats and so on and so forth become more interested in sponsoring that player, because he's getting closer to that big league spot where it's advertising for them. Their bats are paid for by the ball club at the big league level. So as an individual progresses, I start with, I'll call a glove company or somebody that produces catcher's gear and say, okay, so-and-so's he's going to the Arizona Fall League this year, or he's going to AAA this year. You have any interest in giving him an endorsement contract? So you kind of, solicit the manufacturers of baseball equipment to see if they are interested in endorsing a particular player.
We're talking today with Mike Mosa, a player's agent. Now, you focus on baseball. Do you do anything else, any other sports? Are you representing anybody in football or soccer or anything like that?
I do strictly baseball. The name of my company is Only Baseball Players, because that's all I do is baseball. That's it. It's confusing enough for me.
Yeah, I understand. What's the process of acquiring clients?
Well, a lot of it comes from referrals from existing clients. And, the draft, because of the amount of money that, players are paid in the draft, a lot of agents want to go get those top draft choices, because, they're going to charge them for, advising them in the draft. I don't do much in the draft because, I really feel that the reason that baseball has you higher up in the draft has nothing to do with what I could do. It's strictly based on your talent. So, there's really, for me to go, in my opinion, charging somebody because, he was blessed with a lot of talent. So I do most of mine from, referrals. And one of the first questions I ask a player when he's going to refer me a player is, what kind of person is he?
Yeah.
That's key. Now let's talk about the draft eligible players. How do you make that first meeting? Does a player call you, or are you reaching out to players and families, or how's that work, Mike?
Most of the time, the player will call me, or a former player or client would call me and say, hey, I used to be this kid's pitching coach, when I worked at, this pitching facility. He's may go fairly high in the draft, or he's going to get drafted. He wants to talk to somebody and see exactly how the draft works and what to expect. And I feel that information should be free. So have him give me a call, and I'll answer his question.
Let's take it from there. So what about, slot money and all that stuff? How are you made aware of where this person might be drafted?
Well, normally the ball club that is recruiting him, that wants to sign him, will give him some indication of where they think that player fits in the draft.
Okay.
And on draft day, that normally goes in the trash can.
Yeah.
But just the world of baseball. Your higher draft choices, they normally stay somewhere, the upper levels. But as makes sense, every advisor out there wants to talk to, a number one or a number two draft choice because of the amount of money involved. But, and nobody knows whether you get drafted, first round, first pick, or 10th round, 30th pick. Nobody knows who's going to make it.
Exactly.
I think we're all aware of first round, first picks that, got $4 or $5 million and never made it. And it's not that, there's something wrong with them or everybody misgauged them. It's, on the planet, there's 780 guys that play Major League Baseball on the entire planet. That's an awful,
small amount.
Yeah. So
I've had, 10th round draft choices spend 8 years in the big league.
Oh yeah, I've seen them.
Yeah.
Mike Piazza.
Oh yeah. Did he even? I don't even think he got drafted. Did he?
Yeah, he was Was
he a free agent signee?
It was a Tommy Lasorda buddy deal.
Yeah.
I think that's what I heard. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But all right, Mike. What about? So let's talk about slot money. What kind of money are they throwing around these days?
Well, I think that's anybody can Google that and find out what each round is going to be. It changes every year. I think this year was like $7 million for the first round.
Oh,
first
wow.
round pick. And that's
$7 million used to that would take care of the whole minor leagues for 1 year with a couple of organizations.
Yeah, one time.
I'm understanding the minimum salary is around $700,000 now. Is that true?
This year it's 700. Next year it'll be 720. And you probably remember, Stan, that you could get a big league call up, be on that first year salary, and let's go back 7 or 8 years when it was $360,000 was the minimum. Your second year in the big leagues, they didn't have to give you a raise. So some clubs would give you as little as $1,000 after you had played in the big leagues for a year. And this is the first contract that I've seen the Players Association. Now, if you play in 22 in the big leagues and 23, you're getting a $20,000 pay raise.
When I was playing, the salaries in the baseball were like $50,000, $60,000.
Yeah.
But I remember
Big Mac didn't cost $385 back then either.
George Foster was the first $1 million player. I heard. Is that true?
Well, I don't remember who the first $1 million player was, but you just as you're well aware that in the early '60s, all big league ball players had an off-season job.
Right.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I remember when Jimmy Lefevre, he was Rookie of the Year for the Dodgers in 1965. His salary was $7,500 for the year.
Wow.
And that's like that's the National League Rookie of the Year, and there was only 8 teams in the 8 teams in the American League and 8 teams in the National League.
It wasn't quite as big as it is now.
Yeah. Now,
No. Now they're getting paid. I'm sorry.
You represent both major league and minor leaguers?
Oh, yeah. I have more minor leaguers than I have big leaguers.
Well, I understand that, but as far you mentioned 700,000 salary, is that major league salary? Is that minor league salary? Is there a minimum for minor league?
There is. This is the first year that they've had a minimum for minor league salaries. Okay. If you're in rookie league, it's $675 a month this year. If you're at AAA this year, it would be, $675 a week. This year, if you're at AAA, it would be $1,200 a week. And, I can remember when $600 was the monthly salary at low.
Well, $500 a month was my starting salary when I signed with the Mets.
And how many guys lived in your apartment?
Oh, it was crowded.
Yeah.
We had them from all over the world
living on mattresses on the floor.
Had to threaten them to get their rent money. Anyway, it was crazy. Yeah, we had 5 guys in one house one time with 2 bedrooms. So it was.
And somebody slept on the kitchen floor.
Either that or in the living room or the dining room in a sleeping bag.
Yep.
Yeah, it's something else.
Can you answer this question for me? Exactly why is an agent necessary?
Well, I think the first thing, and I'm not trying to be condescending, but, these individuals that get drafted, all they've done is played baseball their entire life.
Right.
Correct.
So now we're dealing with a life experience issue of, if somebody says something to them or, does something, a lot of them, will just bite the bullet. They really don't know whether it's appropriate, inappropriate. It's an entirely different business world to them. So, for me, it's let me give you as much information as I can. If something comes up that, doesn't make sense to you, give me a call. And I won't do anything unless you give me a green light to do it. So it's, and a lot of this goes to the injury issue of I had a player this year that had to have Tommy John surgery, and it was a nightmare dealing with the big league club, getting them to send him to get a second opinion. Got that second opinion. Okay. That opinion didn't jive with the team doctor. Player is allowed to, and of course I'm doing all the talking for the player. Players allowed to pick the doctor. And I tell you, the club was so upset with it. He was on the operating table when they released him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, it can be a tough business. The player gets, he says, they're releasing me. I was on the operating table, and they kind of, try to tone that down as to, they wanted to get rid of, this issue, but now they have to be held responsible for your rehab and your workman's comp. And sometimes you have to explain to a club that, okay, you're in state X. You don't get to pick what the workman's compensation is.
Right.
The state does. And when they say, well, we don't, then you have to plug them into an attorney in that state that does workman's comp. And normally the Players Association has those names and numbers. God bless them. And, they get together, and normally that attorney will let the ball club know. We're not asking, we're just letting you know this is the way it's going to go.
So that's where an attorney comes in. Is there another area of your work where an attorney might be needed again?
That's workman's comp is one. Normally, when you have an issue with a major league club, the Players Association, if you bring it to their attention, they will resolve any issue that they have with Major League Baseball.
They have lawyers within the organization.
I got you. Yeah. What about do you use a financial advisor, Mike?
I do not, because my fear is if I referred you to a financial advisor that at some point in time in his life he went south, I reference this individual to you. So I tell you,
so you could be held accountable for that, huh?
He feels
possible.
that. Yeah.
You know, I'd rather have you pick your financial advisor. I have a woman that does taxes. She was a former IRS, what do you call it, accountant. So,
Yeah.
and she's rather conservative. So, she doesn't stretch that string too far as taxes go. But, finances, that's your money. Should you get a financial advisor? Yeah, but, be careful when you get one. And that's when I have to say be careful when you get one, then that's not something I want to recommend.
I understand.
Our guest today is Mike Mosa, a baseball agent. Mike, are there teams that are easier to negotiate with than others?
Yeah, it depends on the personality, in a front office. So, and all those personalities are different.
Sure.
I found a few years back, I had a guy that, played for a New York team, which kind of a limited one, but I'm not going to mention the team. And their general manager was very reasonable in, what he thought you had in a player and what he thought he could get, and what he thought he could give him to take care of him. And, that's, comforting for me. But like I said, I've also had guys turn to me and say, you can't get, $1 million in arbitration. You can't go from his current salary to $1 million. And that's the guy you have to tell. It's not my decision. It's not yours. It's the arbitrator. So, you can sit here and say he can't get $1 million. And when the arbitrator gives him $1 million, that's the bottom line. And I hate to say this out loud, but I did get him his $1 million.
Good.
Well, that's why you're there.
Yeah.
Now, what do you do for the player let's say you got a player that's coming out of college. Any advice for a player like that you're going to be representing possibly?
Well, I think his college education is important. And I think I said to Stan the other day, I had a player that I asked him when he was in college, what did you take? And he said, eligibility. And I said, what? He said, I just took classes to stay eligible. Well, baseball is a short-term career. You could play in the big leagues for 10 years. You're 35 years of age. Baseball is done with you. You don't have a job.
Right.
So what do you have to fall back on? So if you're going to school, be serious about your education. I had a kid that was one semester from his master's degree in engineering. And he got called to the draft, and they offered him something like $5,000. He was a lower round, and he called me and said, what would you do? And I said, you're one semester from your master's? He said, yeah. I said, I get my master's.
Absolutely.
And he did, and he had a heck of a senior year, and they paid him $400,000. And he's still got his master's degree in engineering. He's done playing baseball, but he's still an engineer.
Outstanding.
Life goes on. Baseball leaves you, but life goes on, as I know very well.
Yeah. Baseball and talent leaves you.
You're one step slower, and your reflexes have left you completely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but you could, and it's amazing when you remember how you played. You remember how great you were that nobody noticed. You got better with time.
Of course, definitely.
Yeah. That's our time for this episode. Mike, thank you so much for being with us today.
You bet.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate it. You guys stay healthy, would you?
You bet.
That's what we try to do in our elder years.
Yeah, it was great info today. Thanks very much.
Yeah, many thanks to our special guest today, Mike Mosa. And thank you for listening. If you have any questions or comments or things you would like for us to cover, we'd love to hear from you. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at A Visit to the Mound or on our website at avisittothemound.com. Make sure you like, subscribe, and review this podcast and be listening the next time we take a visit to the mound. That'll wrap up this visit to the mound. We certainly appreciate you joining us today for a little baseball talk. Anytime you want to hear something about baseball, you can find us anywhere you get your podcast, or you can go to roguemedianetwork.com for the next edition of A Visit to the Mound.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.